There is a moment at checkout that feels almost harmless. You find something you want. Maybe it is not even something reckless. A pair of shoes, a small appliance, a desk chair, a phone accessory, something useful, something normal, something that feels like it belongs in your life, and then, right before you pay, the price changes. Not officially, the product still costs the same, but your brain no longer sees the full price. It sees something smaller. Not $200, 4 payments of $50, not $80, 4 payments of $20, not a decision that makes you stop and think, just a smaller number that lets you continue. And that is the quiet genius of buy now, pay later. It does not always convince you that something is cheap. It convinces you that the decision is smaller than it really is. The product is still the same price. The money still has to leave your account. The obligation still exists. But the pain has been divided into pieces. And when pain is divided into pieces, it becomes easier to ignore. That is where the trap begins. Not with a scam, not with a villain, not with someone forcing you to buy something you do not want. The trap begins with a tiny sentence that sounds helpful: pay in 4. At first, it feels like control. It feels like flexibility. It feels smarter than using a credit card. And sometimes, it really can be useful. If you understand it, plan for it, and use it carefully, buy now, pay later can be a short-term payment tool. But that is not the part companies are counting on. They are not building the checkout experience around the person who opens a spreadsheet, checks next month's bills, calculates every future payment, and asks whether this purchase still makes sense at full price. They are building it around the moment when you hesitate, because hesitation is expensive. Hesitation is the moment when a customer might leave. And buy now, pay later is designed to make that hesitation disappear. The old question was, can I afford this? The new question becomes, can I afford the first payment? And those are not the same question. One question looks at the whole purchase. The other looks at the door handle. And once the door opens, the rest of the decision quietly follows. A typical pay in 4 BNPL plan takes one purchase and splits it into 4 payments. The first payment is usually due at checkout, and the remaining 3 payments are paid every 2 weeks, over about 6 weeks. The CFPB describes the typical BNPL structure this way, often for purchases between $50 and $1,000. That sounds simple, and that simplicity is the part of the appeal. No complicated loan application, no long-term contract, no big monthly statement, no feeling that you are taking on serious debt, just 4 payments, just a few weeks, just a smaller number. But the problem is not always one BNPL plan. The problem is what happens when this way of thinking becomes normal. Because once you learn to see a purchase through its smallest payment, every price starts to shrink. $100 becomes $25, $300 becomes $75, $800 becomes $200, and your brain begins to compare the payment, not the price. That is the first trick. Buy now, pay later does not only split the bill, it splits your attention. One part of your attention stays with the thing you want. The other part should go to the full cost, but instead, it gets redirected toward the smaller installment, and the smaller installment feels manageable. It feels reasonable, it feels almost responsible, but the future has a schedule, and it does not care how small each payment felt when you clicked confirm. 2 weeks later, the second payment arrives, then the third, then the fourth. And if there is only one purchase, maybe nothing terrible happens. The money leaves. You move on. The product is paid off. The story ends. But real life does not happen one clean purchase at a time. Real life stacks. A pair of shoes here, a birthday gift there, a kitchen item, a travel booking, a replacement phone, a thing you did not want to pay for today, a thing you told yourself you would deal with later. And each one comes with its own little schedule. 4 payments, 4 payments. At some point, the question is no longer, can I afford this purchase? The question becomes, how many future payments have I already promised? That is the part people miss. Buy now, pay later feels like one decision at checkout, but it creates multiple future decisions that you may not revisit. You make the choice once. The payments continue without asking you to feel the choice again. And this is why it fits perfectly into the modern money trap. Subscriptions hide spending by making it repeat quietly. Car loans hide price by turning a large purchase into a monthly payment. Buy now, pay later hides cost by breaking the price into pieces. Different products, same psychological move. reduce the pain, reduce the friction, reduce the moment when the person might stop. And if the person does not stop, the purchase happens. This is not an accident. Retailers offer buy now, pay later because it can help more people complete purchases. And research has found evidence that people spend more when using BNPL. One 2025 study found that installment prices can lower the perceived expensiveness of a purchase, which increases spending. A Central Bank of Ireland experimental study found that participants spent, on average, 4.39% more when using BNPL compared with debit cards. That number may not sound dramatic. 4% does not sound like financial ruin, but the trap is rarely dramatic at first. It is not one giant mistake. It is not one night of madness. It is a slightly easier yes, repeated again and again. That is how many money traps work. They do not make you feel irresponsible. They make the irresponsible choice feel normal. Buy now, pay later is especially powerful because it changes the emotional timing of a purchase. The pleasure is now, the pain is later. You get the item today, you get the feeling today, you get the little dopamine moment today. But the full cost is spread into the future. And because the future version of you is not standing at checkout, it is very easy to spend that person's money. You imagine next month's self as calmer, richer, more organized, more prepared. Next month, you will handle it. Next month, things will be easier. But next month also has rent. Next month has groceries. Next month has subscriptions. Next month has insurance. Next month has unexpected expenses. And that is where the emotional trick becomes a financial system. The purchase no longer competes with today's money. It competes with future money that does not feel real yet. This is why interest-free can still be dangerous. Interest-free does not mean cost-free. It means the price of the product may not grow if you pay on time, but the commitment still takes space in your future cash flow. The money still has to come from somewhere. And if several payments hit at the same time, the problem is not the interest rate. The problem is timing. A zero-interest payment can still arrive on the worst possible day. It can arrive the same week as a utility bill, the same morning as a rent payment. In the Federal Reserve's 2025 household survey, 16% of US adults use BNPL. Slightly more than 1/4 of BNPL users were late making a payment. And 11% of BNPL users had a BNPL payment trigger, an overdraft, or non-sufficient funds fee from their bank in the prior year. That is the part that breaks the illusion. Payment can be interest-free and still create fees somewhere else. A plan can look clean on the checkout page and still collide with your bank account. A purchase can feel small and still become stressful when it joins everything else. And this is why the phrase, buy now, pay later, is so elegant. It tells the truth. It does not say, buy now, maybe pay later. It says, pay later. Later is not optional. Later is the product. You are buying time. And sometimes, buying time is useful. But time is not free. It has to be managed. If you use BNPL for one planned purchase with money already set aside, it can be just a payment method. If you use it because the smaller payment makes the purchase feel affordable, it becomes something else. It becomes a way to approve a purchase that the full price would have challenged. And that is the key difference. The problem is not splitting payments. The problem is using the split payment to avoid the real question. Would I buy this at the full price today? Would I still want it if the checkout page only showed the total? Would I still choose it if all 4 payments were due right now? Would I still buy it if I had to write the full amount on paper and look at it for 10 seconds? If the answer is no, then BNPL did not make the purchase affordable. It made the discomfort smaller. And discomfort is information. That little moment of resistance at checkout is not always your enemy. Sometimes it is your financial immune system. It is the part of you that says, wait, do we need this? Is this the right time? Is this really worth it? Modern checkout pages are designed to move you past that moment as quickly as possible. One-click purchase, saved card, free shipping threshold, limited time offer, recommended add-ons, and now 4 easy payments. Every step removes friction, and friction is not always bad. Friction is the pause where judgment lives. The easier the purchase becomes, the more important the pause becomes, because nobody needs a payment plan for something they already decided carefully. The payment plan becomes most powerful at the edge of doubt, when the full price feels a little too high, when the item feels just outside the budget, when you are almost ready to close the tab. That is when the smaller payment appears, and suddenly the purchase is back on the table. This is why BNPL can feel less like debt and more like permission. Permission to buy now, permission to not wait, permission to not feel the whole price, permission to tell yourself that future you will deal with it. But future you is not a separate person. Future you is just you, later with fewer options. That is the emotional center of the trap. Buy now, pay later turns a purchase into a promise. And promises feel easy when the payment is small. But the future collects every promise. It does not care that each one felt reasonable. It adds them together. Now, this does not mean every BNPL user is reckless. That would be too simple. A lot of people use BNPL because they are trying to manage cash flow. Some use it to avoid credit card interest. Some use it because their budget is tight and an essential purchase cannot wait. Lower income users were more likely to say affordability was the main reason. That matters because the trap is not only psychological, sometimes it is structural. People do not always use BNPL because they are careless. Sometimes they use it because normal life has become expensive, but that makes the tool more dangerous, not less. Because if someone is already financially stretched, a system that creates more future payment dates can turn a tight month into a fragile one. And fragility is not about one huge bill. Fragility is when one small thing going wrong causes 5 other things to go wrong. A late paycheck, a bank fee, a forgotten installment, a surprise expense, a payment hitting before a deposit clears. A plan that looked fine on the checkout screen can become messy in the real account. This is why stacking matters. The CFPB found that in 2022, 21.2% of consumers with a credit record used at least one BNPL loan. Among BNPL borrowers, about 63% had multiple simultaneous BNPL loans at some point during the year, and 33% used loans from multiple BNPL lenders. That is the hidden version of BNPL, not one clean purchase. Multiple small loans from multiple places with multiple schedules. No single one looks frightening, but together they create a second calendar, a calendar of money that has already been promised. And this calendar is often less visible than a credit card statement. Historically, many BNPL loans were not consistently reported to the major credit bureaus, which made the market harder for outside observers to measure. The CFPB's 2025 report specifically points out that this lack of reporting made it harder to see total use, loan stacking, and overall unsecured debt balances. This invisibility has been part of the concern. If debt is easy to take on but hard to see, then both the user and lenders can underestimate the real picture. That may be changing. In 2025, FICO announced new credit scoring models designed to incorporate BNPL data, with availability expected in fall 2025. But adoption depends on lenders, credit reporting practices, and the broader ecosystem. So it does not instantly make every BNPL payment visible everywhere. So the story is changing. Buy now, pay later started as a tool that felt almost outside the traditional credit system, but it is becoming too large to ignore. Richmond Fed estimated that total BNPL transaction value reached roughly $70 billion in 2025, while also noting that this was still about 1.1% of total US credit card purchase volume, and that there was no clear evidence of broad financial stability stress at the current scale. That balance is important. This is not a story about BNPL destroying the economy tomorrow. That would be exaggerated. The trap is more personal, more intimate, more ordinary. The danger is not that buy now, pay later will collapse the entire financial system. The danger is that it may quietly rearrange your own financial system. It can change how you see prices. It can change when you feel pain. It can change what counts as affordable. It can turn a full price decision into a small payment decision. And once that habit becomes normal, you may begin to buy things not because they fit your life, but because they fit into 4 payments. That is a very different standard. A full price asks, is this worth the money? A small payment asks, can I survive the next installment? One question is about value, the other is about endurance. And when spending becomes about endurance, the budget is already in trouble. There's another subtle problem. BNPL can make ownership feel immediate, but responsibility feel delayed. You get the product now, you use it now, you emotionally move on now, but the payment story is still unfinished. By the 3rd or 4th payment, the excitement may be gone. The item may already feel ordinary. The purchase may no longer feel connected to the money leaving your account. This creates a strange emotional mismatch. You're paying for the past, not an investment, not a memory you chose carefully. Sometimes just a moment of checkout weakness that has now become a scheduled withdrawal.
That is why the final payment can feel annoying. Not because the amount is huge,
but because the psychological reward has already expired. You are still paying for a version of yourself that existed 6 weeks ago. And that version of you was more optimistic, more impulsive, more focused on the product, less focused on the calendar. This is the same reason subscriptions become dangerous after the reason is gone. And it is the same reason long car loans make the monthly payment feel more important than the total price. Money traps often separate the emotional benefit from the financial consequence. Benefit now, consequence later, pleasure now, accounting later, identity now, payment later. The longer the distance between the feeling and the cost, the easier it is to make the decision. Buy now, pay later compresses the approval and stretches the consequence. That is the machine. So what is the answer? Not panic, not shame, never use BNPL. The answer is to restore the full price. Before using buy now, pay later, ask one question. Would I buy this if I had to pay the full amount today? Not because you must always pay today, but because your judgment should see the whole decision before the payment plan cuts it into pieces. Then ask a second question. How many future payments have I already promised? This matters more than people think. Because the danger is not one purchase. The danger is overlapping promises. A single $50 payment might be fine, but 5 separate $50 payments across different purchases are not psychologically the same as one $250 bill. Even if your bank account experiences the same loss, your brain treats them like separate little decisions. Your account treats them like money leaving, and your account is the one that has to be right. Third question. What happens if this payment hits on a bad week? If the answer is nothing, the risk may be low. If the answer is, I might overdraft, I might miss another bill, or I might have to put groceries on a credit card, then the purchase is not really affordable. It is fragile. And fragile affordability is not affordability. It is hope. Fourth question. Am I using this because it helps me manage money I already have? Or because it helps me buy something I cannot really afford? That question is uncomfortable. Good. It should be. The whole system is designed to remove discomfort. You need to put some of it back, not as punishment, as protection. Because a pause is cheaper than a payment plan you regret. A moment of friction is cheaper than a bank fee. Closing the tab is cheaper than convincing yourself that 4 payments do not count. I said, this is where the hero of this story changes. At the beginning, he sees a product and a price. The full price feels a little heavy. Then the page offers him a smaller number, 4 payments. Suddenly, the purchase feels lighter. He almost clicks. Not because he is stupid, not because he is reckless, because the page has changed the shape of the decision. But this time he stops. He doesn't ask, can I afford the first payment? He asks, would I still buy this at the full price? He looks at his calendar. He looks at the other payments already waiting. He sees that the issue is not the product. The issue is the schedule. His future money already has jobs, rent, food, subscriptions, and suddenly the tiny payment is not tiny anymore. It is part of a line, part of a pattern, part of a system. So he does something simple. He closes the checkout page. Nothing dramatic happens. No victory music. No financial transformation. He does not become rich. He does not beat consumer capitalism forever. He just keeps one future payment from being born. That is not exciting, but it is powerful, because many financial improvements are not dramatic. They are decisions that never become problems. A payment you never schedule, a purchase you never rationalize, a future bill you never create, a small trap you walk around before it closes. And that is the real lesson. Buy now, pay later does not make things cheaper. It makes the price easier to emotionally accept. It takes one decision and breaks it into smaller pieces. But the pieces still belong to the same purchase. The full cost still exists. The future payments still count. And your future self still has to pay for the moment when present you wanted the pain to feel smaller. So the next time you see only 4 payments, pause. Translate it back. Not 4 easy payments. 1 full price. Not pay later, promise later. Not interest free. Future money, not free. And then ask the question. BNPL does not want you to ask, would I buy this if the small payment disappeared? If yes, maybe it is a tool. If no, it is not a discount. It is a disguise. Because the trap is not paying later. The trap is deciding faster because later feels far away and later always arrives.